The cross that I wear on my left collar is a reflection of my faith. I am a Presbyterian, I'm a Protestant Christian, but that should in no way ever be a barrier to anybody else that has a different faith or no faith. Chaplaincy is a ministry of presence. And what I mean by that is we meet people where they're at. We go where our unit goes. I'm not here for a paycheck. I'm not here for any of that. I'm sincerely here to take care of the men and women who sacrifice so much and serve our country. What I always think that my legacy is in the people that I help. And if that means just one person in the course of my career says, hey, I had this chaplain and she really helped me. She made a difference in my life.
Welcome everyone to the Carry On podcast. My name is Brandon, and I know it's been a little while since you last saw us, but today I have someone special with us. When was the last time you've seen a female chaplain? And I'll wait. That's probably because you hadn't. All right, today I'm lucky to have with us Lieutenant Bonny Shirk. Ma'am, if you'd like to introduce yourself, where you're from, and essentially what made you get, involved in the service.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I think what you guys are doing here is amazing. I think it's such an important part of any branch of service. The resilience piece that you guys are trying to get out there and the message and how you're helping others. So I think what you guys are doing is outstanding, and I'm very honored that you asked me to be here today. My name is Bonny Shirk. I'm a chaplain in the United States Navy very recently, so just in the last couple of years. My parents are from South Korea. I grew up in Michigan and Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then I graduated from high school and went to the University of Michigan. And I have 2 bachelor's degrees from there. One is in secondary education in social studies, and one is in music. And then I'm married to my amazing husband, David. He's actually a retired chaplain. He was a big inspiration for me deciding to become a chaplain myself and working alongside him. And getting to see what that was all about was something that was really important to me to continue that legacy. We have 3 amazing children, our son Evan, and then our twin daughters, Audrey and Claire. Audrey is a cadet at the Coast Guard Academy, and Claire is a midshipman at the United States Naval Academy.
Oh, wow.
So I think they were also a big inspiration for me wanting to join the service, because when they were in ROTC in high school, and then when they went to the prep schools for the academies, and now that they're in the academies, seeing the needs that they do have for chaplains in every branch of service, and especially I think for female chaplains. I had a lot of their friends that had something maybe that wasn't very comfortable to go talk to their male chaplain about, or to go open up to somebody about. And so they would ask to speak to me. And I just felt this calling, and it was a constant call, and you can't run away from a call. And so I talked to my husband about wanting to become a chaplain, and he's been so tremendously supportive. He told me after he retired that whatever I wanted to do, he would support. I could keep working in my current job as a teacher and a musician. I could start volunteering. I could go back to school and switch career paths, whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to work. Whatever I wanted to do, he would support. And when I said, I really feel called to join the chaplaincy, he was so supportive, and he said, I think you would be great at it, and I think if that's where you're called, let's do whatever we need to do to make it happen.
Ma'am, that's awesome. I actually did not know you had 2 degrees, one in music and then one in, you said social studies?
Social studies education.
Okay, so studies education.
When I was living in North Carolina, I was certified K-12 for music, and then 6-12 social studies, and then I took the teacher's test to also be certified in 6-12 language arts. Okay.
So teaching and kind of always having that almost like a mentorship type of role has already been embedded in you, since when you were going through college. It's something that you've always wanted to do.
Absolutely.
And then you just essentially decided to throw faith in there as well and becoming a chaplain, right?
So my master's degree from Liberty University is a master's in divinity in professional chaplaincy with a military concentration, because I, again, was already getting that pull towards military chaplaincy. However, I do have pastoral experience and I was a music minister for a lot of years and a youth pastor as well. And I've always been very involved in my churches, so it was a very natural progression to combine, the nurturing that goes into teaching and the mentorship that goes into teaching, with my ministry. And also I think my life experiences, because chaplains generally tend to be a little bit older, because we have to have a few years of ministerial experience and a master's degree, which obviously to get a master's you have to get a bachelor's. We generally come into the service a little bit older. And so I think also taking my own life experiences, struggles and traumas that I've been through, my experiences as a military spouse and also now as a military parent, and being able to bring all of that to my chaplaincy has been something that makes my experience in this role very different than some of my colleagues.
Okay. Seeing that your husband did it for so long, do you think that was a part of the reason why you thought you could do it? And you were like, you know what, I can do this. And then you joined? Was that a part of it?
I think it's more like, especially when I was serving with the religious ministry team at Cherry Point, North Carolina, when he was stationed there, and working alongside of him, but also getting to meet other chaplains and see them and what they were doing and the impact that they have and how important chaplains are to every unit, regardless of what branch of service it is, and everything that they provide for our service members, not only allowing them to practice their own faith, but then it's also important that we facilitate for the needs of other faiths, and then taking the climate and things that get told to us in confidence and being able to at least come up with some things that maybe we can advise the command on some themes or some issues that are going on a general basis. So that advisement piece, I think, is also really important because it can affect the entire command climate and culture within a unit. And then our last thing in the chaplain corps that we really try to get after is caring for everybody. And to me, that piece is the most important. My personal faith, I was raised Presbyterian. I'm actually a 7th generation Presbyterian. My dad's family were some of the earliest Koreans that were converted to Presbyterianism by the earliest missionaries that went there. And so my faith is very important to me. And in my personal belief in my faith, I think it's so important that we do take care of everybody, that we do look out for the needs of others and have compassion towards other people, regardless of their background, their personal faith, anything else.
That was great, ma'am. Thank you. All right, so ma'am, break it down for me. I'm little E2, E3, brand new to the unit, and someone tells me I need to go see Chaps. Who is Chaps? What does Chaps do?
So the official answer as far as like what the chaplaincy is based on, we do have 4 tenets that we are supposed to be responsible for. One is providing for the religious needs of those who have the same religion as us. So in my case, as a Presbyterian, as a Protestant Christian, people come to me and they ask me to pray with them. I provide field services that are open to anyone who wants to come, but are going to be more familiar and comfortable for other Protestant Christians. People ask me to baptize their babies or perform their marriage ceremonies. So anything along those lines that are for other Protestant Christians or other Presbyterians. But we also facilitate for the religious needs of other religions. So for example, when I go out in the field with my unit, I take a Mount Out box and they have faith kits in there. So that if I have a Catholic that needs a rosary, or I have one of my Jewish Marines that wants a prayer book, or I take a prayer rug with me for my Muslim sailors and Marines. And if they need to talk to somebody in their faith, one of their faith leaders, it is having the connections both within the community and the chaplain corps to be able to connect them not only with those leaders, but also with each other. So for example, in my unit, I started a chat. It's called the Mosque Chat, and it's for all of my Muslim Marines and sailors. And that has actually kind of expanded to a couple of other bases and installations where they're pulling each other in. And when I have somebody new that checks in that says, you know, ma'am, I'm Muslim, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, I add them to the chat, and then they're able to take it from there. So that facilitation for other needs, whether they're a major religion like Judaism or Islam, or if they're, Buddhist or pagan or whatever their needs are, if they're not of the same faith as me, it's still important to make sure that their religious needs are met. That's actually constitutionally why we exist.
Okay.
The other two important parts of chaplaincy are advising the command. So again, because we have a direct open door policy with our leaders and with the triad, I'm able to go and speak to them about things. Obviously, we have confidentiality, which is absolutely sacred. We are the only non-mandatory reporters in the military. So people can come to their chaplain, and sometimes they literally do confess a crime or say, ma'am, when I walk out of your office, I think sometime this weekend I'm really probably going to kill myself. And those are things that, whereas if they had gone to another counselor or a doc or something, they have to report that up. We provide a completely safe space where anybody can say anything and have the full confidence that it's never going to leave that space, because that opens the door for a conversation in which we can sincerely help them. And then the other piece is just care for all. And literally that means caring for everybody, regardless of their faith or whether they have no faith. And whenever I do a welcome aboard brief or a back in the saddles training, I try to make sure I always preface it with the cross that I wear on my left collar is a reflection of my faith. I am a Presbyterian, I'm a Protestant Christian, but that should in no way ever be a barrier to anybody else that has a different faith or no faith, because I see the person inside of the uniform. And I just want to take care of them as a person. And we are all people, everybody, it doesn't matter your rank, your age, how long you've been in, what your walk of life is. Everybody struggles with something. Everybody goes through hard times. That's just life on this earth. And so I think it's really important to see past uniforms and ranks and remember the person inside of the uniform and take care of them.
All right, ma'am. So imagine this. I'm a little E2, E3, no religion, have no desire to follow a religion, and I knock on your door. What can you do for me?
I'm going to treat you with as much dignity and respect as I would anybody, because that is what I believe based on my faith. And I am not here to proselytize you. And if anyone's not familiar with what that means, it means it is not my job to convince you that your problems would be solved if you just believed in my faith. In fact, that is not allowed. We are not supposed to do that. If someone asks us about our faith, ma'am, you're a Christian, I don't really have a religion, I didn't grow up like that, can you teach me about that? Can you help me understand? Then absolutely, I'm happy to help them with that. But the conversation that I have with people that come to me of a different faith or of no faith never involves me in any way trying to influence or push my personal faith and beliefs onto them. That is not what we are supposed to be doing in the Chaplain Corps with our service members. So if you came to me, I might ask you during the conversation, do you have any faith? But if you prefaced it with, I have no faith, I'm not interested, that's not why I'm here, that doesn't need to be a part of the conversation in order for me to still help you. There are two things I always tell people when they sit down for a counseling session. One is that the conversation we have is completely confidential no matter what it is, and sometimes I have to explain that in detail and give them examples. The other one is that, again, based on my faith, I believe, not you have to believe, I believe God is the only one who can judge us. So this is also a safe, judgment-free space in which they can say anything, they can start anywhere, and anything that they have to share with me, no matter how unhinged they might think it is, no matter how embarrassing it might be for them, no matter how hard it is, whatever they're going through, I am not going to approach that with any kind of judgment on my part. So my whole goal is to say, how can I help you through whatever it is that you're trying to walk through?
Definitely. And now, how long have you been a chaplain for, ma'am?
I commissioned in June of 2024.
Okay.
And chaplains actually go in the Navy. We go to ODS, which is Officer Development School. It's a 5-week officer training course. That's also where your docs and your JAGs and some of your other staff officers will go. And then after that, I went directly to chaplain school. That is a 3-part iteration school where we focus really more so on chaplaincy training, everything from admin to even going out into the field and learning about SIF gear and going on rucks with full gear and everything, so that when we are stationed with the Marines, we're able to do that and keep up. Because really, at its core, chaplaincy is a ministry of presence. And what I mean by that is we meet people where they're at. We go where our unit goes. So I think a lot of people think we just sit in our office and do counselings, but it's a lot more than that. If you're really doing everything you should be doing as a chaplain, you're building these relationships, you're building these connections, and the only way to really do that is to get out of your office and go what we call deck plating, right? So I try to get around to the different spaces just to check on everybody, say hi, make sure they know who I am.
Right.
You know, very often, and maybe this is the mom side of me or something different, being a female chaplain, I'll hand out treats or even stickers or take the dog around and just anything I can do for these little morale boosts. And when you already have that established relationship, when they already associate you with maybe the only little sliver of light they have in their day, when we do go and do the hard things in the field, when we are deployed, when they are going through something that they're really struggling with in life, they're much more likely to be comfortable coming and talking to me and opening up to me. And it makes me better able to help them. And in doing so, it does strengthen the unit as a whole.
Oh, I definitely agree, ma'am. Okay, ma'am, you mentioned confidentiality. At what point do you actually have to kind of break that confidentiality?
I don't.
So I can say I want to blow up X, Y, and Z.
You absolutely can say that in a closed door setting with your chaplain. Now, let me be very clear. If I'm walking down the hallway to go check on somebody and I hear you say that to somebody else, that is not confidential. If you come in with 4 of your buddies and they're all sitting down together, I will tell you guys up front, this conversation is not confidential, not because I'm going to say something, but I don't have control over what the other people in the room do or don't say. But one-on-one, in my office with the door closed, or in any other space. So for example, when we're in the field, sometimes we have to find a confidential space or do the best we can to get away from everyone where you feel safe telling me whatever it is that you need to tell me. And even if it is something that, if I was a counselor or if I was the Oscar or a doc and you told me that, I would be a mandatory reporter. With chaplains, we are both, it goes both ways. We are absolutely protected from not saying anything. In fact, we can get in a lot of trouble if we do violate that confidentiality. That confidentiality is sacred, and I take that very seriously. So there is never a situation in which somebody would tell me something and I would break their confidentiality. And I actually do have people come in and say that they are planning to cause harm to somebody or themselves.
Okay, so ma'am, how do you advise the command without breaking confidentiality?
That sometimes can be very difficult, but it's important. And so I'm very blessed that I have a good relationship with my command and I have earned their trust and they have earned my respect. And so when I go to them with advisement pieces, they know that they cannot ask me for details and they know that I will not provide them with any. And that goes to the extent of not just leaving somebody's name out of the conversation. We don't talk name, rank, certainly. I don't even say Marine or sailor. I don't even say gender. I don't say I have a Marine and he is going through this. I say, question for you, Sergeant Major. If I have a service member in this situation, what are their courses of action? But I don't give them any details about the situation. Or let's say that in the course of 2 weeks after a deployment, I have 7 or 8 people come in with suicide ideations. I don't report that. I don't give names out or anything. I, on a personal level, will continue to check on those individuals. And that still maintains that confidentiality and that connection between myself and whoever is seeking the help. But I can go to the command, or I can go to, if like, especially if it's concentrated in a certain company or something, and just tell their leaders, like, just so that you're tracking, we've had a big uptick in suicide ideations. Do you think that there's something within your company or within the unit or that we can do to get after this, and how can I support you?
I definitely see what you mean, right? Like you can kind of gather the key information and kind of like just raise awareness, right?
Absolutely.
On those certain issues. Okay, ma'am. So there's a lot of people who you're there for, but who is there for Chaplain?
Well, I think part of that, it's really important to remember that whatever we actually end up being to individuals or to a command, chaplains are people also. We also have our own struggles, whether we have a family or not, a primary relationship or not. We are people. We take on a lot of other people's, grief and moral injury. And so it is important for us, it's just as important for us as it is for anyone else, to have people that we can go to when we need to unburden ourselves or when we're going through something. So for me, obviously, I think I lean into my faith a lot, and that keeps me very grounded. It always has. But then beyond that, I'm very lucky, I'm very blessed that I think in my unique situation of having a husband who is very supportive and also was in this profession, and not just as a chaplain, but as a Navy chaplain. So right now I'm serving with a Marine Corps billet. My next command will be a Navy billet. Navy chaplains also serve the Coast Guard. And so I think the fact that I've had exposure to all of those branches and that he understands a lot of the questions that I have, the struggles that I go through, or the frustrations that I have at times, I have that kind of built-in insulation at home. Beyond that, I also have a couple of very close, trusted friends, which again, even there's never a violation of confidentiality. I never tell them somebody's story, somebody's life, somebody's name, but I will say, look, I had a really tough day. I had some really heavy counselings come through my door, or sometimes people go through divorces. I recently helped a dual mill couple through the loss of a baby. And being able to take all that on and trying to be the peace and the calm in the room for other people. But we are people. Like I said, chaplains are human too. So I know for a fact that, with that situation, with several other situations, we keep it together. We use our training, and in my case, I lean into my faith, and I just ask God to keep me strong through whatever situation I am going through with this person, because it's not about me. I need to be there to help them through their struggle and through their storm. But sometimes that means we get in the car or we get home and we cry. We cry about it later, right? Chaplains are very often sent, I know at some point in my career, I will have to do a CACO call, casualty assistance, letting somebody know, hey, your service member has passed away. That, I've seen it. I've seen the toll it takes on very seasoned, experienced chaplains that have been in combat. I saw the demeanor shift and how hard it was for my husband to go make a CACO call and come home. I know that emotional toll, again, that's a point in where we need to be strong, professional, and be there for the family that is going through the darkest time possibly ever in their lives. And sometimes that might mean, you cry with them, but again, it is about making sure you're focusing on who you're taking care of. And when we take on that grief and we have to deal with that on our own, it does actually take a lot out of us. Sometimes the burnout with any kind of caretaker role is very, very high. But I think that's why it's also important that everyone have a mentorship built in. And so for me, I've always been taught, and this is what I have in place, I have other chaplains that I'm very close with, that I know I can go to, and they come to me when we need to chaplain each other. I have mentors within my career community, so other chaplains. I also have a mentor within my unit. I have a mentor that has is more like a life mentorship. It has nothing to do with ministry, chaplaincy, military, just when I need life mentoring. And then I have my best friend. And so I think I'm very blessed in that I do have a strong support system that keeps me grounded and helps me filter through and process not only the grief and the things that I take on from the people that I help, but also when I go through my own personal struggles, because I do, and all chaplains do.
Definitely. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing that. I think it's important for someone to have that outlet to go to. And I know your role, you know, I've used you, right? Like I've came to your office and been like, I just need to talk in a way, right?
Sure.
And kind of let some stuff out. So it's great to hear that, you know, you're also being taken care of. Ma'am, what would you say a service member needs, but just doesn't say?
I think every person needs, and especially in the service. So when you guys go through boot camp, when we go through our training, the idea is almost to strip us down from our identities and make our new identity whatever branch of service we join, which is important. It's important so that we can accomplish a mission in the line of work that we do, which is very often, unfortunately, warfare in the interest of protecting our nation. But I think oftentimes what gets lost is, again, going back to remembering that there is a person inside of that uniform, and that those people, those human beings, are still human beings. I know that the government gives us a DOD ID or an EDIPI, which is essentially a serial number. And I think, and I've seen this, I think a lot of people feel like they've been reduced to that when they join the fleet. And I think it's important to remind them that they are not alone. Somebody cares about them. Somebody does love them and is willing to help them, because being especially stationed overseas or away from where your normal support system might be can be very isolating. So I think that a common theme that I see a lot of people struggle with is loneliness and isolation and feeling like they've got something going on, but whether it's due to stigma, whether it's due to op-tempo, or just feeling like nobody cares, that they don't have anyone to go to. I think in the unit that I'm currently in 12th Littoral Combat Team, and previously when I was at Headquarters Battalion, the command climate was such that people did know that they could go talk to their leadership. People did know that I was available or that I could get them connected with the right resources. So I think that everybody needs, but especially our service members need, to know that they are not alone, and that we need to be looking out for each other. We need to be checking on each other, even the people that might look okay on the outside. And interestingly enough, you know, rank, experience, age, gender, walk of life has nothing to do with it, because again, we're all human beings. We're all going to go through something in this life that we struggle with. We all have stressors, and I know it's very common in the military to internalize it, push it down, and just focus on the mission. But sometimes, just like anything else, if we carry around too much weight, we're going to stumble, we're going to fall eventually. And we just need someone sometimes to help pick us up and sift through that weight and decide what we can unload and show us how we can unload that.
I agree with you, ma'am. At what point, though, do you think that in some situations, service members just really need to start building some more resilience, right? Because I think that's what really makes the Marine Corps and the service, or at least the U.S. service, like very different, is that we pride ourselves in the resilience, right? Knowing that as a chaplain and myself as like a leader, when I'm talking to my Marines and I'm hearing these questions or like hearing their concerns, I'm always thinking in the back of my head is like, maybe you just need to be a little bit more resilient, right? Does that ever come across your mind when you're hearing that service member talk about their problems?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I think it's very different in my role as a chaplain. So whereas you as their leadership do take a lot of corrective measures or do kind of give things to them very directly, I am honest. I'm always very honest with people. And I will tell them if I think that whatever their concern is something that we can talk through and we can process through, and then they can get back out there and get after it. But my approach is always different because, again, I am facilitating and providing that safe space for people to be able to come to. And what I find very interesting is very often when somebody comes in, like let's say that you corrected one of your Marines for being late, and you told them that they just needed to figure out how are they going to not be late again, and you gave them some corrective action. They might come to me and be upset because they got corrected or feel bad because they were late. I will tell them the same thing, but my approach and how I tell them that is very different. And sometimes it does take both for them to hear that. And so whereas feeling like they're in trouble or they're getting corrected might not be as well received, I can also give them that same message, but do it in a way where they might be more receptive to it because they do feel more safe in that space. Honestly, I look at it very much like parenting sometimes.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say you play a very big, almost like motherly role within our unit. You know, we kind of make those jokes, right? Like in Korea, we were talking about, oh, here comes Mother Chaps, right? Here with like the hand warmers, pieces of candy, right? Things that are a very nurturing thing. And I think that's like a benefit for, you know, from sergeant majors down to the PFCs, right? We're all away from, you know, our family. So sometimes it's always good to have someone there that would actually like make you feel like, you know, they care about you on a deeper level. So.
Well, and I think especially with our very young Marines and sailors, some of them left home, went straight into the service, and then got stationed out in Okinawa away from their families. And they are looking for that mothering, nurturing role. A lot of times if they end up in the hospital or they end up in trouble, they call me. And I do approach it very much like I do, you know, my own children. My own children were not ever in trouble growing up. So I want to preface this with that.
You know of.
We'll have that conversation, I'm sure. So for example, there have been many times where if there's a Liberty incident and they end up at PMO or they end up in another situation where they're in some hot water, the command is already tracking, of course, but they want me to be the one to come and pick them up or come and visit them at the hospital or whatever the case may be. A lot of times, especially with our female Marines and sailors, if they're going through a medical issue or going through a sensitive situation because of something that happened to them, they want me there with them, whether that's taking them to the EAO, whether that's taking them to NCIS, taking them to the hospital. They want me to go with them or be there with them for them. And I think, again, this is where the life experience and coming in a little bit older, having been the spouse, having been a parent, I think really benefits how I'm able to help our Marines and sailors as they 100%. Go through things.
Ma'am, so playing almost like a motherly figure for a unit, being the chaplain, it's a positive thing. How come we see very little female chaplains?
So number one, I think by nature, in general, if you look at the statistics, regardless of MOSs or billets, there just are more men in the military, right? So that's the obvious one. But specific to chaplaincy, in order to become a chaplain in the military, regardless of what branch you choose, you have to have what's called an endorser, an ecclesiastical endorsing agent. And that's why there are certain faiths that are not represented because they're not able to fulfill that piece. They don't have endorsing agencies. And our endorsers are actually very much in control of what we're allowed to do and not do. They set the left and right lateral limits for where our boundaries are of what we can get after and what we can do in the capacity of our chaplaincy. So we have to adhere to those tenets, and we're never ever forced to break away from that. The issue is a lot of the endorsers, so there are over 100 Navy endorsers, and I believe less than 24 of them will endorse females. At least as far as Christian endorsers go, a lot of them don't believe that women should be in ministry. They value women, they respect women, they absolutely think that there's a place for women in ways that they can support ministry, but they themselves should not be leading ministry. And so it's actually very difficult for us, or I shouldn't say very difficult, but it's certainly more challenging, I think, for women to find an endorser to allow them to go into the chaplaincy. And then, we've come a long way. For a long time, the Navy chaplaincy had about 1,000 chaplains at any given time, and fewer than 50 of them were female. And remember, we're serving the Marine Corps, the entire Navy, and the Coast Guard, as well as the service academies, including the Merchant Marine Academy. And so I think that obviously, in general, our society has shifted to being more open to that. And I also, and this is one of the reasons that I did join when my daughters went in, was there's been an uptick in every branch of females going into service. But that has not been reflected necessarily in the chaplaincy and that balance. And I think that's really important. I think that's why most of the big service academies, so Naval Academy, West Point, and the Air Force Academy, always try to have at least one female chaplain on deck. And so I think it's a combination of the endorsers, but also, in general, for us as women, if we choose to have families and things like that, it's very difficult to balance that at times. It's interesting you say like the mother chaplain role, because it is a very unique experience. So when I go to my brother chaplains that I confide in and that I'm very close with, and we talk about our experiences and we talk about things, it's interesting how very, very different those are. I think being just inherently just being a female chaplain, being that kind of mom vibes versus dad vibes is very different. Having said that, we are all expected regardless to be a ministry of presence, to adhere to the same tenets, and go where our service members go. So when my unit deploys, I go with them. I pack out my SIF gear. I do everything that they do, and I try to be there with them, because I can't be there for people if I'm not there. And so to that end, they don't go, well, you're a female, we won't put you with an infantry unit. They go, hey, we have a billet, we need this filled. It's a lieutenant billet, or in the future, it's a lieutenant commander billet. You need to go here, and we go. And I told my recruiter and my detailer from the beginning that I know what I signed on for, and I'm here to serve for the right reasons. I'm in a very blessed position because of my husband being being a retired service member, where I have the option to not work as far as being able to live and keep a roof over my head. I'm not here for a paycheck. And because of my husband, I already get commissary access, TRICARE for the rest of my life. I'm not here for any of that. I'm sincerely here to take care of the men and women who sacrifice so much and serve our country. And the day that I feel like I'm not giving it my whole heart and sincerely being there for the right reasons and giving it my all is the day that I'm going to get out. And whether that's 20 years from now and retiring, or whether that's 3 billets from now and saying, you know what, I'm causing more harm than good because I'm not giving it my whole heart anymore. I have no problem saying, I'm going to let somebody else that has been called come in and help these people. Because at the end of the day, that's really what everyone's goal should be.
Definitely, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, ma'am. If someone had to ask you, right, what is the legacy you want to leave behind? What is that legacy?
Well, Brandon, I have no delusions of grandeur. I have no aspirations to be the next chief of chaplains. I don't expect them to name a building or a base or a street after me. That's not my goal here, right? The reality is that the Navy and the Marine Corps have existed for going on 251 years. And I know it will go on for centuries after me. So my legacy doesn't exist in the sense of the whole of the Navy or the whole of the Marine Corps or the whole of the Coast Guard. What I always think that my legacy is in the people that I help. And if that means just one person in the course of my career says, hey, I had this chaplain and she really helped me. She made a difference in my life. Then I think that what I'm doing, which I find so fulfilling And I truly love the people that I work with and that I work alongside and serve alongside. But if even throughout the course of my career, however long or short that is, even one person says that I made a positive difference in their life and I helped them and allowed them to overcome something so that they could go on and do something wonderful with their lives, I think that is the best legacy I could ask for.
Well, ma'am, I will tell you this. You have the one person right here, so I appreciate, everything that you do. Now, what is one thing that you would tell that service member who's kind of on the fence about going to see their chaplain? What would you tell them?
Well, I want to make it very clear that, chaplains are available for service members and their families. So I think there again, being a spouse of a service member, when I have spouses come to me with their struggles, especially during their first deployment, a lot of our young spouses kind of struggle with that adjustment. That gives me a really good perspective to be able to connect with them, relate to them, and help them. And so we are available for service members and their families as well. But I think if anyone is struggling to talk to the chaplain, or they're just not sure about that, or maybe they're not comfortable for whatever reason with their unit chaplain, it is important that they know that any service member can go to any chaplain of any branch if they need help, and that there are also a lot of other wonderful resources they can reach out to. But for anybody who's struggling with something, please reach out to someone, whether that's your chaplain, your Oscar, your friend in the unit, somebody in your leadership. No matter what you're going through, we can help you get through it, and you will not walk through it alone. You are never going to be alone as a service member or as a veteran, and this family that you have signed on for expands across the globe, and you are loved and supported, and whatever you're going through, we can absolutely help you walk through it, and we'll walk with you.
Well, ma'am, that was beautiful. About to bring a tear to my face. I just want to say thank you for coming by and taking the time to sit down with us. I'm sure there's going to be people out there who enjoy hearing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure,
just as much
Brandon.
as we did.
Thank you for having me. And if anyone is interested in or feels a calling in becoming a chaplain, as long as they have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in divinity with some ministerial experience, they can seek out a recruiter, a chaplain recruiter, and look into endorsement, because we're always looking for truly called, compassionate chaplains that can continue to strengthen the resiliency and help our service members who really need it. And in fact, the Marine Corps is getting ready to roll out a program, I believe, next year for active duty Marines who want to become a chaplain. So stand by for more information on that. I think you'd be a great one. But I'm really excited about, the future of our chaplain corps. And of course, everything I have in my future, being able to serve alongside the world's greatest Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard.
I agree, ma'am. World's greatest. Well, thank you for coming again, ma'am. That was it. Thank you for attending the Carry On podcast, and thank you guys for listening. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, or share this with someone that you know that you think may be interested in this.